Hello, my spooky friends, and welcome to another episode of Dairyland Frights, the paranormal podcast that covers everything spooky, creepy, and mysterious in the Midwest and beyond. And today, folks, I have a great guest on, and we're getting back to one of my favorite subjects. But let me bring him on here for you first. Lee from the Secret Society of Strangers. Welcome. I'm doing great, and again, thank you for being on the podcast. Lee and I are going to have a great time because we're going to talk about a great topic. I'm teasing you guys, I know, but we were talking offline here, and Lee and I are excited about this because it doesn't get a lot of, not as much as it used to, I should say, press and things of that nature. Lee, if you could do me and my spooky friends a favor, could you talk a little bit about the Secret Society of Strangers and what it's all about?
So, some true crime, but mainly we're into cryptids and missing people and those kinds of mysteries.
Yeah.
It's me and two other hosts, me and my friend Josh and Jen, and it's hanging out. It's like hanging out with your friends, talking conspiracies and paranormal stuff.
Isn't it the greatest? Isn't that the greatest to do, man?
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. I
It's
love
the
it.
best.
So, what inspired you? Well, let me back up here. Why don't you tell me, Lee, about kind of your first paranormal experience or what interested you in the paranormal when maybe you were a little younger, and kind of carried on into your adult years?
So I grew up on Long Island. I'll get yelled at for saying in. And as you know, out there's Montauk, so I was huge into what went on out there in the Montauk Project and Camp Hero. So, me and my friends, once we started driving, we would take treks out there and try to, see what we could see. And from there it was, exploring haunted asylums and, doing stuff like that. And eventually the advent of the internet, it's on 4chan and all the, I'm a lurker on Reddit. And so I just love deep diving mysteries and conspiracies. As far as paranormal experiences, I have one. I'm tough on myself when it comes to these things because I don't have a lot of proof. So I was in a cemetery one time, and I was in college. We were upstate New York, and it was me and my buddies, and we were walking out, doing what college kids do at night. And we saw a plasma ball kind of jump from tombstone to tombstone, and we booked it, so we didn't hang around. But that's what I have as far as personal paranormal experience.
Love it. Let's just really true crime, just really quick. The Long Island serial killer.
Yes.
You guys have you done? I'm sorry, I haven't viewed all your stuff. Have you done?
Of course not. I understand. I was on another podcast where we did do it with my friend who lived on Long Island with me, so we did cover. Yeah.
That's
Hiraman, his last name.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's again, you do not know your neighbors, right? You do not know your coworkers.
Nope. And that's one of those things I'm sure other people could relate that have had major things happen in their towns or their neighborhoods. You start to put things together, his house on that block stuck out like a sore thumb. It was not up to par with the rest of the houses on that Long Island block. And you probably drove past it and were like, yeah, I wonder who lives in there.
Yeah.
You gotta wait
Yeah.
for a long time.
Yeah. And, of course, I'm here from Wisconsin. And as you know, we have two of the heavy hitters, and Ed Gein and, Dahmer. And if you ever want me on the podcast, I've been on numerous podcasts. I can tell some true stories about Ed Gein and Jeffrey Dahmer, who people knew him. And my cousin's friend, I've said this many times, almost got killed by him, was almost the victim.
Oh, wow. I'd love to hear that story.
Yeah, so when you guys get to that, if you guys want to do a thing on serial killers, please bring me in. I'd love to share that with you. It's crazy. It's just weird. And, there's been, obviously, with serial killers, not to get on that tangent, but it's everywhere and anywhere. Although they do say the Pacific Northwest has the most. I'm like, okay, I don't know, but I didn't do the research on it, but okay.
Yeah, I don't know. And I think just with the way, if you ever like pay attention to the numbers of people who go missing, I think it's everywhere. I think
Yeah.
a lot of these people just operate completely under the radar.
Totally under the radar.
Yeah.
Released and sorry, my spooky friends, I'll get out of this tangent in a second. The FBI just released a report where they claim there's anywhere from 25 to 50 active serial killers right now as we speak across the United States.
If you didn't want a reason to lock your door at night, there you go.
Or look at the neighbor who's just staring out the window coldly at you every day.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Everyone gets a double look.
All right, I'm gonna close those drapes, lock those doors. It's crazy though. But man talk, right? That's something I haven't done yet. I want to do a feature on that because that inspired Stranger Things, and that was bizarre. Because again, you guys cover conspiracy theories. I cover conspiracy theories. The main thing about conspiracy theories are you got to take it with a grain of salt, right? You can't, because you're just going to, everything is conspiracy. Like, oh my God, this plastic cup, there's something with that, it's something, how they made it. And, it's poisoned by the Illuminati and
Well,
but
they find their way into all of them. The Illuminati finds their way into every conspiracy.
Yeah. There's like 5 guys in a room and they're all, dictating how we eat and sleep and social media and on and on and on and on. And a lot of it's true, but the fun thing is when it does come true, like man talk, or the subject we'll be talking about here soon. How does that, when you guys cover that, you and your co-host, how do you guys research and cover that so it doesn't sound like you have a tinfoil hat on and you're like just spouting nonsense?
So we tread carefully. So depending on the topic, some topics have some more of like a story format where we're able to tell the story in a linear fashion. And then we get to the end and we have all our theories and conjecture. And if there are skeptics or skeptical views, we do always talk about them, and we always talk about what's plausible and what's actually possible. So we always try to wrap it up in some sort of reality. We say in our things, this is all stuff that we've researched. We're not claiming that any of this stuff is true. I'm sure you go through a lot of the same stuff, but yeah, so we do like to cover, again, conspiracy. So we do have to tread carefully in how full we go into those conspiracies.
Yeah, absolutely. Because one thing I might cover is MK Ultra. That was the mind bending kind of CIA trying to get people to be able to remote view and all this stuff. And they used LSD, and then they found out it was oh, this ain't working.
Nope.
And everybody just okay, forget it, let's leave.
Yeah, no one wanted to work anymore.
Yeah, and it just, and then they found out, oh, wait a minute, we can use this drug for medicine. We can use this drug to help people with depression. We can use this for, microdosing if people just want to take a wild ride one night. And then there's things like ayahuasca and all this stuff. And it's really interesting to me is, again, something like that, actually, it's terrible what they did, again, you can go, there's a million podcasts, and I might do it. But, again, a theory like that, where it comes true, where people admit, or the Freedom of Information Act, you read it, how does that make you feel when you guys are like, my God, that's real. That's actually happened.
Personally, I bring it to the dinner table or the holiday table because that's where I'm usually shunned and run out of the house. And then I come back and say, hey, last year you guys were yelling at me. Now what's true?
Yes.
It's always a good feeling. Sometimes, it's a good feeling that, you put in that time and that research and, these are things that we care about. So when, we put our time and effort into, connecting the dots and they're close to what we said, there's some vindication there. You feel good.
Absolutely. And let me ask you this, and I'll get on to just really quick topic before we get to our main topic. Is there one favorite conspiracy theory you have?
That's a good question. So it's not as big, and some people have claimed that it's been solved, but D.B. Cooper is a very interesting, I could consider it lighthearted compared to some of the other ones.
Absolutely.
But if he is who he said he was and he got away with it, he's the only person to ever do it. And he did it pretty smooth.
Yeah, right? And no one got hurt.
Nope.
No one got hurt. The plane didn't crash. stewardesses, well, they call them stewardesses that time, or flight attendants. Like it was harmless in the sense that it didn't destroy lives. It was like, I got my money, boom, I'm out. And it was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and the people on the plane had no idea. They got
It was
landed,
just,
they turned
yeah.
around. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a
It was,
fascinating one.
and you know, again, so I'll tell you what I think. You ready? You're probably going to go, you're wrong, but I think he died. I think he came down, he died. Someone like a logger or a lumberjack, whatever you want to call him, found the money, took it, and then people thought that guy was DB Cooper. Because, you know, like maybe, so, you know, he put the money in under his bed or in his mattress, or, you know what I mean? And then someone found it and said, oh my God, you're DB Cooper. And he's like, who? No, what? I mean, that's my theory. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think?
That's completely plausible. And I think that's part of why I love this mystery, is because he could have died on impact and the money could have been gone to the wind and no one ever saw it again. Or he could have landed and had some kind of connection and got away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did what seems to be impossible for a lot of these people to do, is actually lay low once you get the money. If he
absolutely. And for my younger audience out there and Lee's younger audience out there, if you're going, who is this guy? Go look him up. It's crazy story. Or go listen to the Society of Strangers and hear what Lee has to say about it and everything. I'm sure it's awesome. But remember, back in this time, there was no die packs. There was no way to trace that money unless somebody wanted to literally, because there were, you know, computers and stuff were like the size of a freaking football stadium. You know, it wasn't like your phone here where you can be like, hey, I'll do a bunch of research. Got him. Kind of attitude. Or we did something with the magnetic strips in the money, blah, blah, blah. No, it's gone.
Nope. The only thing they could have traced that money by was the serial numbers, because
Correct.
when he took the money, he took consecutive serial numbers. But I mean, that's a hard trace.
Yeah, that's a lot of work. Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of work, and someone eventually would just probably be like, okay.
Well, you were relying on like a cashier at like a A&P to like be like, I'm suspicious of this $20 bill. And they don't care.
Yeah. And if the guy was smart and he wasn't like buying Cadillacs and like paying cash for them and stuff, like you said, you go into an A&P or whatever grocery store you have and you're give them $20 for some groceries. They're not looking at it. They're a teenager. They could care less.
Exactly.
Yeah. So other thing, in your area, you have some pretty cool cryptids. Obviously, you have the New Jersey Devil, kind of close in there, kind of. And that's the most famous one. There are some other ones, obviously, in there. Do you have a favorite cryptid?
Favorite all-time cryptid is Mothman. Hands down, Mothman is my guy. Locally, we have the Squonk, who is like a pig-like creature who is ill-fitted in his skin and is crying most of the time, so he's kind of comical. Yeah, look that one up. If you haven't heard of the Squonk, look the Squonk up.
I will.
He's fun, yeah.
I will. He does the cryptid hurt anybody? Just cries?
Just cries. Just
cries.
Okay. Right. Weeps and cries.
I haven't heard that one. That's a good one. I love that. So Mothman, really quickly, I don't know if you know this, but here in the Midwest, there's been numerous sightings in Chicago and surrounding area. And I interviewed a woman who lives near Chicago on one of my podcasts. And she said she hasn't seen it, but she knows some neighbors who have, where they were out like grilling, you know, in the middle, you know, like not in the middle of the night, but late night grilling, you know, having some beers, sitting around the fire pit. And just hearing these wings just whoosh, 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 and they're like, that's not an eagle or a hawk. That's something big. And so we'll see. And, you know, Mothman's usually associated with negative stuff, but there's been numerous sightings. Yeah. Nothing's happened around the Chicago O'Hare Airport. No planes have gone down. Nobody's crashed. No robberies. No killings. No.
And the whole Silver Bridge thing, he could have been trying to warn people. Who knows? He didn't actually collapse the bridge himself. So, you know, who knows?
Absolutely.
Again,
absolutely.
Those,
you don't know.
Legs.
My favorite cryptid is the Beast of Bray Road here in Wisconsin. It's a werewolf-like creature. Super weird. Everyone has stories about him who lives in that area. Like, you can't throw a rock without hitting somebody who'd be like, I've seen this and I've seen that. But no pictures. No. Well, there was a picture. I take that back. But it looks like somebody put a cheesy, really crappy Halloween costume together and just went running down a small town street.
Yep. I've seen all of them, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Is that similar to like Dogman? Because Dogman is actually newer to me.
Yeah. So Dogman in Michigan is kind of similar, but Dogman has been associated with some attacks. Not lethal, no one's died, just people who have been in the wrong place at the wrong time when this creature Dogman has come out. Why Beast of Bray Road, one of the few stories is there are guys who pick up roadkill. That is their job. And this guy was doing that, and he was picking up the roadkill, part of a maintenance crew, grabbed a deer carcass, threw it in the back of his pickup, driving away. It was like late at night. And all of a sudden, you hear like boom, 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 like somebody jumping in his truck. And he's like, what the hell, you know? And he looks out the back of his truck, and there's like this werewolf-like creature who just grabs the carcass and just jumps out. He's scared,
Terrifying.
you know, shitless.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
And he, to this day, he just says, you think I'm lying? Fine. I'm not lying. Why would I lie? I'm not making money I don't want any press. I'm just telling you this is what happened. So I'm like, that's interesting. So so you know, in all of our areas, there's a number of different things, you know, which really interesting. That is so much to talk about, right? There's just so much. So
forever.
Yeah, you could literally just keep talking about so many cryptids and paranormal and so on and so forth. But today, I'm going to tell you, Lee, this is a good one.
Great one.
What if I told you there was a secret base in New Mexico, been around since some people say maybe the 40s, 30s, 50s. Nobody really has an idea of when it's been around, but it is in New Mexico, and it houses spaceships, alien spaceships, extraterrestrials, alien technology, and it's, I don't know why, but if you compare it to Area 51, forget it. This thing blows it away. And there's been a lot of strange things associated with this base. And it is called the Dulce Air Force Base. And me and Lee were talking about this offline. And again, what's so crazy about this is it is been there for years. The funny thing about it is the government, it's like something out of a Men in Black movie or any cheesy comedy kind of alien movie. When they were building this base, before I get into the history, please, Lee, chime in anytime you want. More than welcome to. They were using things like Smith Construction, it would say on the trucks. And they were like literally building this thing in the middle, not in the middle of New Mexico. It's kind of, you know, obviously away from most of the population and everything. And they're building this thing right out in the open. And people are like, what are they building? And it's not like a regular base. Like people in that area know that in New Mexico. Unfortunately, the indigenous population has been kicked around and kicked out, and well, that's a whole different podcast. Oh, yeah. But anyway, so they just build these bases all over and they just whatever, right? But this was really interesting because they were like covering things up, like construction crews in the area. They would have to sign non-disclosure agreements. They, you know, some claim that some of these, this is where it gets wacky conspiracy. Some of these construction crews were like fired. Like they would build something, like told them to build something. Oh, build this building right there. Okay, now you're fired. And they'd be like, what? You know, what's going on? Other times, some people said they were even killed who kind of got in there and everything and kind of thought a little bit more. And today, I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of a history. Like I said, Lee, before I get into it, do you want to say anything?
I mean, you hit it right on the head with anything out of a sci-fi movie you can think of. It's almost plus. Like what you can think of, plus more.
Yes.
And this is one of those that it has tentacles. It goes everywhere. It reaches all the other conspiracies and things you could think of. It's wild.
Yeah. And if you ever seen the movie Independence Day, the first movie, and where they grab the president and they take him to Area 51 and they take him down to these levels, we'll talk about that a little bit. Mm-hmm. And he just The president's like, what? Like, oh my God. There's alien technology and ships and aliens. And yeah, that's scratching the surface of this base.
And that reaction from the president, it's rumored that that's true, that the president's considered a temporary employee. So there are certain things that he's not keyed in on.
It's crazy. I even heard a rumor on someone else's podcast, a bigger podcast than ours put together, but that's okay. They don't need our help. They said when they were researching this and talking to people who were there and stuff, they would hear like clicks on their cell phone. Like it would go click, 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 click. And they'd be like, what? And they'd look at their cell phone sometimes and it would like come on and then go off. And they'd be like, and then they see something downloading. And then they'd be like, what the hell? And these guys on this podcast said it was bizarre. Like they felt they were being followed. They were saying maybe they were too getting into it because they did quite a deep dive into it. But it was just weird. I'm like, okay. So let's talk a little bit about it, okay? Kind of give you a little background we'll start with. So on the surface, Dulce, New Mexico. Anybody in New Mexico, if I'm butchering it, it's Dairyland Frights at gmail.com. Just bring it to me. It's just a small southwestern town. Go and look in Google. Nothing, really. Any small town you can think of. It doesn't even have a traffic light, Lee. And I looked it up.
Is that true?
It doesn't. Yes.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so very small.
So, but according to the most bizarre rumors, and it's not a rumor, we'll get into why. This little town is just on the gargantuan underground facility that is home to unimaginable experiments and technologies. And this is funny, I will put the links in there, the gentleman who wrote this, I did not write this. For the tinfoil hat wearers, there's a whole world beneath Dulce. A secret, high-tech one filled with aliens, alien technology, and other mysteries. According to conspiracy theories, the Dulce subterranean base is a 7-story compound. Think about that for a second. 7-story beneath Dulce, New Mexico. That houses, human-animal hybrids, human-alien hybrids, and extremely advanced technologies. They say even there's been the site of alien wars. And Lee and I were talking about that. The usual. It's been called the Roswell of northern New Mexico, not for nothing. And so I'm going to stop there really quick. So think about that. And I don't know if you want to bring something up. It's 7 stories. There's been a war there, which I'm not going to get too much into because we could go on for 2 or 3 hours about just the war. And that's something maybe, if you're going to do it, maybe I'll hop on your podcast and we can talk about it.
Yeah, we got a plan for this month coming up.
Awesome. So what do you think, Dulce, of all those things you've heard so far, Lee?
What do I think of it?
Yeah.
I think I want to go there. I think it should be number 1 on my tourist list. I think that it's plausible because they always have this way of redirecting. And if this has all this and Area 51 has anything, they're like, sure, keep paying attention to Area 51. They put it in all the movies, they put it in all the books, but no one puts anything about this base. And this base apparently has the holy grail of it all.
Yes. And the thing about this too, really quickly, is, one of the things is this is super high level stuff. Like the lower you go, the more security there is, to the point of lethal security. So rumors are you got to have one of those bio things where, they look at your eye and then, they voice scan, they do your badge scan. Sometimes they've heard they do a full body scan. They have basically shoot to kill. All the security down there is told shoot to kill. Like if you go down there and let's say you get down there somehow, let's say me and Lee get down there somehow, right? Yeah, if we screw up one thing, like Lee has gum in his pocket and I have like a wrong pen or something, they'll kill us.
Yeah,
and we're dead.
Rumor about part of security is that you get stripped down naked, you get weighed and all those things, and if you lose more than 3 pounds in that process, your red lights go off and now you're being cavity searched and crazy.
That's crazy. So The first claims of the base existence, according to How Stuff Works, and I was reading about this because they were talking about it, was a really interesting article, believe it or not, date all the way back to the 19. But the rumors of alien intervention in the area began to gain traction in the 70s when a former New Mexico State Police trooper named Gabe Valdez documented he wrote a book about it too. It's on Amazon. Documented unexplained cattle mutations in the area. According to the Santa Fe, New Mexican newspaper, in a radio interview, Valdez said, the evidence that was left there, predators don't leave gas masks, glow sticks, radar chaff. They don't leave that stuff. That is a quote from Valdez. So he started out this, and he was just a cop, and he saw these mutilations. Like the farmers would come out and say, hey, man, something's happened to my cattle. It's not wolves or coyotes or whatever you want to say, chupacabra or something. It's not, it's not Bigfoot. It's literally something's weird going on. So Valdez made more wild claims in other interviews, including sightings of black, silent, sophisticated spacecraft and the discovery of a fetus inside a dead cow, but not a calf fetus. Quote, Valdez said, it looked like a human, a monkey, and a frog. Valdez said to the History Channel's UFOs hunters, it didn't, and I quote, it didn't have any bones in the head. It was all full of water. And Valdez thought, what else? The cows were incubating alien babies. So when you hear this at first, Lee, you kind of think to yourself, okay, there's a cop in New Mexico. He's saying that he's seeing these aircrafts and everything. And let me back up a little quickly here. I'm not going to get too deep into the base and all the different levels and stuff. Lee can cover that, and hopefully I can come on his podcast. If not, we'll follow up and we'll do something else. But like we said, all of these levels are done for each individual thing. So like the first level is just general. Like they may have some technology in there. Let's say, I'm just throwing this out here, this is not true, but let's say they invented the microwave there. Because, NASA invented the microwave, and eventually the microwave oven came from there. And then NASA did Velcro too. But they say a lot of stuff came out of Dolce, that these aliens were basically giving us technology for, well, yes, human abduction. So that is a theory out there. This is kind of the general level. So you might see some experimental aircraft. You might see like stealth technology, for example, supposedly came from Dolce. That is not, there's no way to validate that anyway. But if you think about it, like, yeah, it's like everything in our technology kind of has been making a lot of leaps and bounds. Like we were just literally like put everything in the oven or cook it over fire. And now we have microwaves and Velcro and stealth technology and radar defeating technology and on and on and on and on and on, right? Where'd it come from? Then you can say, well, just a bunch of smart guys in a room. They're all working together for the common good. And that's where it comes from. Okay, you can go with that. But my feeling is, again, and this is something that was taken back to like different presidents working. And I always say Eisenhower. I'm not sure if it was Eisenhower that made the deal with the aliens back in, what was it? There was a treaty with that. And I always goof it up. I apologize to my spooky friends and Lee. But anyway, basically the treaty was, you give us technology, we give you people, but you only can have so many people. I don't know whether to believe it or not. So that's kind of like the first level. And then, like I said, second level is a little more technology. Third level is a little more technology and some genetic technology. Fourth level, nobody's really sure, but they're like alien human hybrids, like I said, animal hybrids. Then you get to the fifth, sixth, and seventh level where nobody's really sure what's going on, but those are the deep, like, the crazy things you can think of is happening there, including an alien war. But I believe it's between the Greys and there's another alien class where there was a war.
Draconian.
Thank you. So what do you think of that, Lee? Did you find that really interesting as I do? And what is your thoughts on it?
Yeah, that I believe it's the sixth floor, is actually like rumored to be called like the Nightmare Hall.
All right.
because of like some of the experiments that go on down there are so like horrific and crazy. In this day and age, I put nothing past our government. So yeah, I mean, do I believe? And there's rumors that there's more than 7 floors that humans can't go to.
Correct. There's subterranean caves, tunnel
Mhm.
systems that lead. There's other things like where there's these subterranean tunnel systems that lead God knows where.
Some to other bases, some to other civilizations, maybe.
Yeah. That's just and right. Other civilizations, other things down there that who knows? We don't know.
No, we don't.
That's scary.
That's,
You
I think,
know?
one of the biggest things with all the stuff that we all talk about here is that, like, it all ends up coming down to, like, we really know nothing. Like, the inside of our Earth is not explored well. Our space is not explored well. The ocean's not explored well. And we're just everybody's like, yeah, maybe it's there, but no one knows for sure. So,
yeah. And you know, again, some of these, I'm going to bring up some different quotes here and everything coming up. And like I said, Lee, just please step in. So, like I said, Valdez, he has a book. I believe it's still in print. You can find it to read about it. And like I said, he talks about sophisticated aircraft. He talks about all these different things happening. But what was weird about it, and I haven't read the book. I'm going to get the book just for fun. He also talks in there how people visit him, like the Men in Black came to him and talked to him and said, hey, you know, cool it basically, or this is going to happen to you, that's going to happen to you. Again, I'm just paraphrasing here. I want to do a story about this guy because he's really interesting because nobody really believed him, you know, and he went through a lot of different things trying to convince people. And, you know, remember, he's a cop. So cops you believe, don't believe. I mean, that's your whole thing. Some cops I believe, some cops I don't, right? But again, he's not making money off of this. He's clearing $1 million. He's not like some people who have like the Conjuring House or the Amityville Horror where they've made legitimate money. Now, the book, I don't know how much it is, but whatever. Yeah, it's not a big deal.
More like stress and like harassment that comes with any kind of financial benefit for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's coming with more stress. It's coming with, I don't know if he's married or anything. I didn't go that far deep dive into him. But again, still your friends, your family, everyone you go to and you start telling this to, and it's the 70s, right? So come on. And, you know, the other thing, too, where he would hear these silent helicopters and everything, we have those now. You know, they use them. They've used them in Desert Storm and the first, second one, whatever, which war we're at. They have used them. My cousin who was in the military, he was a staff sergeant in the 82nd Airborne. He told me, you know, he was in the first Desert Storm and he was there and he looked up and he saw this helicopter going and you know, they're fucking loud. I mean, it's deafening.
All the time here, yeah.
Yeah, and he saw this helicopter in the distance just going across there, and he was like, and then he saw like these like special ops guys jump out, grab somebody, and jump back in, and he was like, okay, and it freaked him out a little bit, but he was, yeah, he just kept silent because again, he has other things to worry about, keeping his troops alive, so he doesn't, you know, if it's a silent helicopter, great, you know, fine. But anyway, there also was Tim Anderson, a former police officer in Dulce, and he claimed to have seen a UFO in the town in the late 1990s. So Valdez was 70s, a little bit of 80s, but mostly 70s, a little earlier. So the 90s, fairly, you know, recent. And it lit up, according to him, quote, it lit up the whole valley and just disappeared into the rocks. He told this to the Santa Fe, New Mexican newspaper. Quote, I just rubbed my eyes. Did I really see that? For good measure, Anderson also believes, you gotta love this, here it comes, Lee, Bigfoot resides in or near the town. Gotta bring in Bigfoot and aliens.
Right, gotta. But it's so interesting that he says it disappears into the floor and not like shoots away or just disappears.
Yeah.
Because now we know that there's those giant like opening doors in the desert that ships and planes and stuff go into.
Yeah. One of the things too, and this is a story, yes, from Reddit, folks. So believe it or not, there's a story I just want to read quickly. This guy does not give his name. It's anonymous. But he claims he was on the security on the 6th Wait, what's the nightmare one again?
The
Fifth or the
sixth floor.
sixth one.
Sixth, yeah.
Okay, so he said he was security on the sixth floor. Now, again, believe what you want to believe, but still, it's a very interesting story. This gentleman claims that he was standing guard, and you don't know where it's night or day unless you look at your watch. You have no idea. You're underground. So anyway, he was just doing guard duty and everything like that. And he said all of a sudden the light started flickering, and all of a sudden the light bulbs all exploded, and everyone, obviously extra power like a generator, so that clicked on the emergency, and the alarm started going on. And he was like, okay, what's going on? Someone break in, what's happening? And then his commander came over and told him point blank, you need to leave right now. We are shutting this thing down right now. And he was like, okay. And then, but before they slam these huge, I don't know how many thick steel inch doors and stuff, he saw this electricity just popping all over the place. And he swears that he saw a creature that was shooting electricity out of its hands, like a comic book almost, like an alien creature, he claims. And people were rushing to grab him, and he was literally shooting these beams of electricity at them, sending them, like in a movie, some sci-fi movie, sending them. And then the doors slammed. Everyone got out of there. And he, to this day, he doesn't know what happened. They reopened it. He was not put back. He told in the story, he said, I was not put back on that guard duty. I was moved to a different level.
Wow. It lines up with some of the other stuff we hear about with the war and with Phil Schneider and all that stuff.
Yes. Yes. And the other story, again from Reddit, believe it or you want to believe it, another security person was though on the 4th level. And he said, do you know those machines in, oh boy, now I'm drawing a blank. I'm trying to read this from James Cameron. Movies. I got to look this up really quick. But what is that movie called? It starts with an A. Why am I drawing a blank here?
Avatar?
Avatar. Thank you.
There you go.
So in Avatar, what they had was, those giant walking robots, or whatever you want to call them, where those guys were in, they had a big knife and they had the guns. Yeah. They got those. And he was saying that he was down there and he went into a room, and this one had this big baton on it, like a shock stick too, there's electricity coming out of it. And it was, the guy in there was moving it all around. And he said, this is what he said, I quote, it picked up a Toyota and ripped it in half with no problem. I'm like, okay. And he also claims that they had simulated dummies around of people. It was obviously a protest. And this thing just wailing on the people with this stick. It's knocking them. And he said it scared the shit out of him. He's like, oh my God, we actually have those.
I believe that. I believe that we have mech suits and exoskeletons.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the exoskeletons, that these guys are just going and picking up 200-pound weights like it's nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely seen those, and they have the jetpacks now. You've seen the guys on the jetpacks at the stadiums and stuff. I don't doubt that they have something bigger. It's more like a vehicle. Yeah. Why not? Yeah.
The other thing I heard about is there's a movie called Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger. If you haven't seen it, you gotta see it. It's a great movie. Supposedly there was a general at Dolce said after seeing that movie with his kid, they said to the scientists at Dolce, I want that technology. I want that. Make that technology. Could you see that? Like a soldier in the battlefield?
They're getting close. And if they're not there already, they're right there. Everything that we see out on the battlefield is not what they're doing underground. They're 10 steps ahead. If you're seeing the Boston Dynamics thing doing flips, the military's got something, 10 times better than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy.
It's scary to think that that's just there in the middle. Who knows what could happen?
Yeah. And the funny thing about it is, in a sense, the military is smart, right? Because they introduced the stealth technology. Yeah, they didn't come out with it probably when I think they could have came out with it in the 70s or 60s. You know what I mean? Could have came out a lot earlier because if you want to go, I do a lot of history and everything. I love history and a lot of World War II. So, like, for example, the Germans, the Nazis had these, what the stealth planes look like. They had those, not stealth technology, but they had these wing planes, basically. Look like a huge wing, and it's supposed it could carry, like, thousands of bombs or hundreds of bombs or whatever, and just lay waste, like, to any country. And they had it working, but it was too clumsy, or whatever you want to say. Like the fighter jets, not fighter jets, but the other planes that we had and the British had, could just shoot it down with little or no problem. And again, the Nazis did have rockets. They did have jets, per se.
They had a lot,
so,
and we took a lot.
Yeah, and we took that technology, right?
Yep.
So imagine that with someone who's so advanced, an alien technology that is so advanced, that can say, like, oh, this is a tinker toy. I can take this tomorrow and make you a weapon that could destroy half of this world or destroy the entire world.
Yep.
Like, wow.
Terrifying. And could probably read your thoughts. They'd probably
read your thoughts too. Yes. And that's the other thing too. Down at these different levels, like the nightmare level and whatever levels, they use telepathy, telekinesis, whatever you want to say. They use all these different things where they can read our minds, they can move objects, they can. So when they're down there, these scientists have to wear like special protective gear, so these aliens don't get in their heads and start screwing around with them. I mean, that's a rumor too.
Yeah. But again, we get drips and drabs. So now part of that rumor is true. We have psionics with Jacob Barber, I believe was the new whistleblower's name, who with that egg video, with the egg craft video, and he's claiming that we've been remote viewing and we have psionic assets that can do all that stuff. Again, this is what happens. It's a little bit's true, a little bit's outlandish, and then you got to try to parse together what's real.
Right. And again, how hard, think about you go to work, right? Think about it. You're a guy that works there. How hard would that be? They must have to live there, because you can't come home to your wife and kids, right? And see that alien shooting electricity.
No, you would be the dad with like the 1,000-yard stare everywhere you went, because you would just be so mind bent on, like, I just saw the craziest stuff. How am I supposed to pay attention to softball right now? No. There's no.
How am I supposed to play this beer chug game with the softball team when I just saw something that could kill everybody in this town with just a snap of its finger? Like my wife comes home and she works for a pharmaceutical company, one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. Yeah, and she'll come home and she'll be like, oh, I'm so mad. I'm like, why? What happened? Oh, I screwed up these samples and everything like that. But she's not doing samples of alien DNA or anything. She's doing samples of certain drugs so, we don't fall over dead. So we don't have a heart attack or something. You know what I'm saying? So my wife would be terrible at that, by the way. I don't need to pick on my wife, but my wife would be the worst.
It'd be a tough gig for a lot of people. I mean, I'm not going to be picked because I'm running to the first person I know and telling them so.
Yeah. And then,
I don't have a
people have come out and talked about this, and everybody's like, okay, whatever.
I've been called crazy enough. I got nothing to lose. If I find this stuff out, you guys will be the first to know, I promise.
And, too, like, I've never seen a UFO. I've seen things that I thought were a UFO.
Me too.
Just not to get off on a tangent, but here we go. Like, one time I live in a small town in southwestern Wisconsin. I was driving home one day, and there was this like ship, and it was just floating. And I'm like, that's weird. So I pulled over so I wouldn't someone rams me from behind because I'm looking at this thing. You know what I mean? So I pulled over and I start looking at it. And then down the road, this other guy pulls over and he starts looking at it. And then he comes walking towards me. Like, we were about, 50 feet. And he goes, you're seeing that too? I'm like, yeah. What is it? And he goes, that's not a helicopter. I'm like, yeah, that's not a helicopter. And we were like, is it an ultralight? And then we both look at each other like, it's 8:00 at night. Why would an ultralight be? That guy's fucking drunk or something if he's doing that.
Absolutely insane, yeah.
Yeah, he's insane. Like, something's wrong. Like, we better call somebody. And then it just kind of floated and floated across. And then we were like, maybe it's a drone? And the guy goes, could be. And then we were like, okay, well, thanks, man. Yeah, all right. And we just went. But
That's
to
what
this day,
happens.
I don't know what that was. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
UFO, right? Because
Yep.
it's unidentified or UAP, unidentified area phenomenon, or whatever they call it. But again, I didn't know what that was. And I came home and I told my wife, and she just kind of shrugged her shoulders. She said, okay. You know, like, I'm
Good for
okay,
you.
right? So it was weird. You know, it's very strange. Have you ever seen something that just kind of
Right
like,
along those lines. Actually, a couple months ago when they had the whole drone thing going on,
yeah.
I was driving home and there's a dark road that's like a cemetery road, and there's just winding, and there was just this, yeah, like you said, there was just this thing, this light, and it was kind of just hovering, and I didn't stop. I probably should have, but I kept driving and trying to see if it was moving, and it just didn't seem like it was moving. And then I just kept driving. I got to my house and it was still there. And I came back outside a couple minutes later and I showed my wife. I'm like, it's still there. But was it one of the drones or was it something else? It's one of those things like,
Yeah.
how excited can you get about it because it's unidentified?
Speaking of the drones, did you guys do a story on it at all, or thinking of doing a story?
No, that's a sore spot for me. I get very frustrated.
Okay, all right.
Josh, the co-host, likes to rouse me about that whole thing. He made me talk about it. But again, conspiracy, I think there's way more going on there than aliens and drones. Like there was something else going on.
Yeah, I just think, not to rouse you up, buddy, but I think it was somebody messing with us in the government, trying to show like something, and I don't know why. I have no idea. It could be, but it wasn't like they were landing and like, I don't know, or like going over someone's house and like hovering for like 5-10 minutes, and you're like, what the hell, man? What is going on, right?
It was weird, and there were a lot of weird adjacent things. So at the time, there was some kind of radioactive nuclear asset thing that had gone missing. They didn't know where it went. So there are methods to use drones to search for radioactivity to find those things.
Yes.
And there was also a test corridor opened up, like from Chicago down through like Jersey into the Atlantic to test like military aircraft. So it's like, that's right on the line. If they did lose, like it all, there's too many things to make it like something mundane that they're just trying not to talk about.
Yeah.
Versus
being
invaded.
Right. Yeah. I don't think it has anything to do with, aliens or whatever. So one of the last things, and again, we could do a whole thing on this, and I think Lee and his team will do that. And I'd love to hear it or love to be on the podcast.
Thinking maybe we'll do a two-parter and have you on for one of them. Yeah.
Love that. So the colorful claims of the paranormal have come from many different times and people in Dolce. And like I said, never mind all that cattle stuff. Philip Snyder, a former explosive engineer employed by the U.S. government, introduced the idea of Dolce as a site of a brutal human alien war. Schneider, who had high-level security clearance, claimed that he helped construct a secret underground base in Dolce in 1979. There, he says, he witnessed a battle with the subterranean aliens that left 60 humans dead. The alien war wages on to this day, Schneider tells the Epic Times. Another key, and I'll have you speak on this a little bit. Another key player in the Dolce Base conspiracy theory is a man named Paul Benovitz. Benovitz, who earned a PhD in physics, became convinced that cattle mutations around the area were the result of extraterrestrial intervention, according to how stuff works. He then allegedly began picking up intercepted electronic signals near Dolce, a town too small to receive messages. Benovitz theorized that these signals were coming from underground and going toward a target high in the sky. By the east, he was actively spreading the rumors of the underground alien facility in Dolce, New Mexico. So, let's go back to Schneider and his claim of the war. What do you think of that? Without getting too deep into it, without stealing your thunder,
It's a wonderful story. It's a
Yes.
fascinating story. If you look a little deeper into Phil Schneider, he's got a sketchy past, and some of those claims
Yes.
are a little bit sketchy. Again, did he see something not so dramatic and just thought he needed to make it that dramatic to have people listen to him? Did he have some kind of PTSD? Again, these books are wide open because, yeah, like you said, 60 humans died down there, and he lost fingers.
Mm-hmm.
And like got shot in the chest with like a laser beam. It's a it's a crazy story.
Yeah. Yes. And that's something like we talked about what we like to do. And I didn't put it in here because that's another hour,
Yeah,
like I said, and there's some other things. I'll probably revisit this later down the road. But today, here's the thing about it. It still is like shrouded in mystery. Like people don't bring it up. Like Area 51. One of the reasons they, laughed, and I don't think they laughed. Okay. But that's conspiracy theory number one, is they did a lot of testing of nuclear weapons, atomic weapons, and other weapons. Now, all the radiation is coming to the top. So it's basically going up the levels and coming to being lethal. So they had to leave. That is one conspiracy theory. The other conspiracy theory is basically like what I would say like a magic act, right? Look over here, and then my other hand is doing this, right? So, there was back, I remember, I think it was like 2010 or whatever, they were like, raid Area 51, and you could go on and sign this thing and run over.
Yeah.
I think they got like 10 guys or something. I don't know what it is.
No one showed up.
But anyway, everyone wanted to check this out. And that was the number one base because that's what it was with Roswell and some other incidents where they had the alien craft. I always want to call him Lazarus, so that's not his name. Lazar, thank you. He was an engineer there. He came forward. They're using all this anti-gravity technology, all this other technology. This is what it looks like. And now, obviously, the military has come out and said, yep, there it is. We got it. And here's the funny thing, before I have you comment on this, Lee, is what makes me laugh, and I've had other people on my show one woman who claims she was abducted, who doesn't claim, she knows she was abducted. A couple other people who have seen aliens, have dealt with aliens, who consider them friends, have said, they're here to either help us or to hurt us. But mostly what I'm hearing is help, but in the sense of, and how do I put this? So when my kids were little, right? My kids would take cookies and I'd be like, okay, you had enough cookies. Stop with the cookies. You're getting a tummy ache. Stop it. They continue to do it, right? So eventually I had to give them a timeout or, move the cookies somewhere, right? That's what I kind of think. I know this sounds really silly and very basic and elementary. That's what I think the aliens think of us as humans.
Yeah.
I think
I don't think it sounds silly. It's almost like a zoo theory. Like we're just important enough to keep alive and make sure we don't destroy ourselves. But like on a whole, they don't really want to be involved. But that's not that crazy. I think that's plausible because
I agree.
If they were malicious, I think we'd already be gone.
Oh, absolutely.
I think if there was wherever they come from, underneath or interdimensional or outer space, if they can travel through those things, we wouldn't even exist anymore if they wanted.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And think of it like, I'm a big nerd, so here comes my nerd stuff. Think about like X-Men, like mutants, right? They could literally, think like Wolverine's one of my favorite characters. Wolverine could literally go into a room and kill everybody within 5 minutes. Nothing you could do about it. Absolutely nothing. Then if you get to a higher level, like Superman could just come down and just be like, okay, you're dead. You're all dead.
You get to like Professor X and he just thinks about it and everyone's head explodes.
Yeah, right. So to our point, again, I don't think we should be too worried. We should be concerned, but not too worried that these aliens are here to destroy us because they could just do it. What are we waiting? What are they waiting for? Right? They could just do it.
Again, you could go on a whole nother episode. We have an episode probably coming into this with theories of what they are, what they want.
Yeah.
There's a trackable pattern that I like to put together and think about that makes a lot of sense in my head, that combines like the humanity's religion and the timelines and all our history and missing knowledge. And then you start to piece these things together and you get a little bit better of a picture that I feel comfortable like leaning on a little bit. But no.
Yeah, exactly. And Bigfoot and aliens, people have said they've seen it close to UFOs and the pyramids, and now recently they have found some type of city underneath the pyramid.
That is interesting. I haven't even had time to like dive into that yet.
I'd love to dive into that. And it's funny because as the world, unfortunately, whether you believe in global warming or not, I'm not going to get into that. Conspiracy theory or not. Some of it is true. I believe in it because you see the eroding. Okay, here's the problem. Let's say the aliens are in Antarctica. Okay, there's a theory. There's hollow earth theory. There's all these different theories. Their environment is changing right now, to a point where they're like, oh crap, we're going to be out. Now with the oceans too, you can say, well, John, if they're deep in the oceans, but however, now again, with some of the environment catastrophes we have, it's starting to go down to deeper levels of the ocean. So imagine you're an alien and all of a sudden all this pollution or whatever starts coming down at you and you're like, whoa, wait a minute. How are we going to get past that?
Intervene somehow, yeah.
Yeah, right. So it deals with that. The other funny thing I found hilarious is, and I told this to my podcast guests, is when we were told, yeah, there's aliens and here are the alien ships. This is what people did. Yeah, okay. Yeah, all right.
And I think that's by design. I really think that's the brilliance of our brainwashing.
Yes.
Is that they've been plugging it for decades, like movies, all these things. And no one, and then they do it with the news cycle. The next minute, like there's a giant, actual, important news story, and the next minute it's done because there's something else. Like,
yeah, it just keeps coming, wave after wave after wave, and after a while, you're just okay.
Yeah,
all right.
How can you take it all in? We're not meant to. You're not, as a person, you're not meant to know global news.
Yeah. No. And I don't follow the news because I want to be happy, and I don't. My wife does it, and my wife will be like, "Oh my God, did you hear this?" And I'm like, "Stop, honey, just stop."
It's funny that you say that because my argument is that stuff has as much validity as the stuff that we're talking about. Like she can do as much about politics and all that stuff as we can do about this. Like she could go vote one day every 4 years or in her local election. Other than that, you can talk about it all you want. They're going to do what they're going to do, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and we're here for the ride.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the other thing with Dolce, again, just scratching the surface here, is, something probably has escaped, right? Something probably has gotten out of there. What that is, I don't know, right? So going back to like, Stranger Things on Netflix, Mantalk, where, 12, I believe 12 was the characters. Yeah, 11, excuse me. Thank you. Again, got out, right? And then everybody's like, what is this? But I don't think, how do I say this? Like, we have Ring cameras. We have cameras on our phone. We have security cameras. We have cameras in our freaking cars. Cameras. If something got out and was something to that effect, where this young girl is like bending metal and like lifting cars and there's that fake crap on YouTube where we know it's fake because you can kind of, oh, come on, guys, use a better program if you're going to fake it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But you see what I'm saying? Like, what is your theory of that? Do you think something has escaped from Dolce? And if so, do you think they caught it right away? Or do you think it's out and just among us, whatever that might be?
I hate to say this after what we just went through globally, but I think if something got out, it's like a virus or something that's so small
I agree.
We wouldn't be able to like do anything about it or see it.
I agree.
As far as like a creature, no, not like by accident. I think if they were going to release something, it'd be a test and they'd know what they were doing and it'd be extremely controlled and it'd be taken out immediately if it got out of wherever they wanted it to.
I agree.
But
I agree. So thank you so much, Lee. This was awesome.
absolutely, yes.
Like I said, we just scratched the surface on this. And, we talked. We can talk about it more on your podcast and what you're going to be putting out. If you could tell why we wrap up here, if you could tell my spooky friends what's coming up and what you guys working on.
So we're going into April, which is going to be our All Aliens All April month.
Nice.
So we'll be covering the Dulce Base. And we just did our episode on Betty and Barney Hill abduction.
Ooh.
And we have the aerial school incident on the list to do, and a few other close contact and abduction cases. So that's pretty much us through April. And then we'll see what comes after that. And we'll probably go back to our cryptids and paranormal world after that.
I love it. Thank you again so much, Lee. This was awesome.
Thank you. I had a great time. This was fun.
Yeah, it's so much fun. Again, I don't want a job there, but I am like Lee. I would like to go and see how close I could get without. I don't want to have somebody putting a gun in front of my face and saying, leave. No.
I do want to see what's there, though, if I can. If anyone's listening that could get me there.
There you go.
This guy, me.
Get Lee a ticket. Will you go on a bus? Let me ask you that.
Yeah, if it's not just me on the bus, yeah, because then it's got a whole nother vibe. If it's just me driving through the desert on a bus, I don't know how I feel about that one.
And just to make clear, Lee doesn't want to go with a bag over his head and be cuffed and thrown in the back of a van, right, Lee? You don't want that.
I want to go voluntarily, and I want to be able to leave when I get there.
Let's make that clear, folks, for everyone listening.
Very clear.
He wants to go voluntarily. All right. Well, thank you so much, Lee. This was awesome. Please go check out the Secret Society of Strangers. Those guys are great. They're on YouTube. Where else can we find you guys?
Everywhere, anywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple. We're on Instagram. We're on TikTok. We're on all the things.
Awesome. All right. Again, thank you so much. I look forward to, like I said, give me a call or,
we'll be in touch. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, we can get on your podcast. I'd love to talk more about this.
Definitely. Yeah.
Thanks, Lee. Stay spooky, buddy. Talk later.